Okay, we begin. We begin this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Abdul-Rahman Muhammad from the Emmy-nominated docuseries Who Killed Malcolm X? Still on Netflix, still being recognized and promoted. I see Damon is here with us this evening. I'd like to thank everybody for being with me tonight. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Okay, I will put the channel in the description box for those of you watching on Facebook. Please go ahead, hit the like button, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, share the video. All right, give me some hearts, give me some thumbs up because I'm on fire tonight. Got a lot to talk about. I have a lot on my mind. Okay, now, first of all, do we have the volume? Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Please let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Okay. I don't let people in my video. Okay. I want to hear this. Derek, hey Derek, what's going on, brother? This is going to be a hot one. So you guys can hear me now, right? I'm asking you, can you hear me okay? Great. The volume is great. That's what I wanted to hear. All right. So, very good. Derek says I'm clear. Fantastic. Fantastic. Because I want this to be a good video. I want the sound quality and I want the visuals to be good because I've got something to say this evening. And tonight, we're going to talk about the so-called conscious community, black Muslims, and the black bourgeoisie. The so-called conscious community, black Muslims, and the black bourgeoisie. Or we could say the black middle class. The bourgeoisie is just it's a clever word to say the black middle class. We're going to talk about it tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because we have a lot to say. But before we begin, we've had a couple of tragedies in the African-American community, the artistic community. This past Saturday, we lost the comedian Fuquan Johnson and two others there in Venice, California. And just today, we learned of the death of Michael K. Williams, who starred as Omar in The Wire. Both of them to drugs, okay, to drugs. And, drugs is a bad scene no matter how you look at it. But nowadays, there's bad drugs going around. Drugs laced with fentanyl, okay? So there's bad drugs going around. So when we hear of tragedies like this, it should be a moment of reflection for us, okay? It should make us stop what we're doing and think about our own life and where we are in our own life. And if we have negative things going on with us, right, we need to address those issues. We need to address those issues. It's a sad, sad day for the families of these brothers. And we send out our condolences to their families. But you're going to be seeing more of this. Okay. This is a time for all of us to get right with our God. Okay. This is a time for us to get our spiritual development together. Okay, because these are some interesting times that we're living through. These are some very, very challenging times. And I will say this to you, ladies and gentlemen, those who are listening to me tonight, that this news of the death of these two men is hitting me kind of hard. It's hitting me especially hard because of what I've been working on, this project that I've been working on all week. For those of you who have taken my course, the Autobiography of Malcolm X course on Zoom, you know I go into quite a bit of detail about Malcolm's years in Harlem and in Boston. Okay, his years in Boston, when he lived with his sister Ella Collins, he meets a woman in the Townsend drugstore where he was working at the soda fountain. Do you all remember that? Let me know if you remember that. Give me a thumbs up if you remember that character in the story. The young woman who goes to the soda shop every day, the soda fountain, to get a banana split from Malcolm, the hill girl. Good. Okay, you let me know. You remember her, right? He called her Laura. And in fact, he wrote an entire chapter about her. Isn't that so? Laura? Well, to date, dear brothers and sisters, to this date, to the date of this video, not one historian, not one biographer, I should say that, has ever identified who this woman Laura is. Okay? The young lady who was on the straight and narrow, who was on her way to college, a junior in high school. She would come by the Townsend drugstore every day with her books, right? Heavy subjects, calculus, Latin, Greek, so on and so forth. She's on her way to college. And because of her intersecting with Malcolm, and because of her getting involved with Malcolm, she goes in a negative direction, right? She goes in a negative direction. And Malcolm says at the end of that chapter, that's one of the greatest regrets he ever had in his life. It troubled him to the day he died, the guilt that he felt for, in a sense, turning this woman, Laura, in the wrong direction, getting her to rebel against her grandmother and so on. Okay? And he says at the end of the chapter, when he came back to Boston from Harlem, right before he put together his burglary ring, he said, the next time I saw her, she was a wreck of a woman. She was a wreck of a woman. Okay? She had stayed out late at night. She started staying late at night, started drinking, okay? And then the drinking turned to drugs, and she got hooked on dope, hard drugs, okay? Heroin, okay? And that in turn forced her into a life of prostitution, okay, to feed her drug habit. And that's why I get this news today of the death of these two artists through drugs. It hit me very hard because I've been doing a lot of research on Laura, okay? And, Malcolm says that she went into prostitution, and then she started to hate the men that were, purchasing her body. And so she started laying down with women, and she was notorious around Roxbury, in and out of prison. Okay, Malcolm knew who this woman was, but he never told us who she was. To date, not one biography has positively ID'd this woman. Okay, but I'm here to tell you that this past week, I have been interviewing family members of Laura, okay? Of Laura. I'm working on a major story that will either appear in the Washington Post or the New York Times. They're both interested in it. I would probably next month it'll come out. Brothers and sisters, let me tell you, the story is much more troubling than even in the autobiography. Okay? This lady was out there. She was out there. And this is what happens when you fool around with those drugs. Okay? This is going to be a major revelation We're going to have photographs of her, okay? And all of the backstory. That's the reason why, by the way, you all should take this course, The Autobiography of Malcolm X, on Zoom, okay? There's nothing like it. I'm telling you, there's nothing like it. I know you all know the General Malcolm X story. I know you've all read the book, but what I'm telling you, when you take this course, this is the kind of information you get, okay? You get the knowledge between the lines, okay? You get the history and the story between the lines, between the paragraphs. We do a deep dive and we tell you who these people are and how their lives turned out, okay? In the case of Laura, her life was a very, very sad and tragic life, and she died at a very, very young age. I can tell you that. Which is, by the way, new information. You didn't know that. No one knows what happened to Laura. Her story, the totality of her story, where she was born, when she died, where she's buried, okay? Never been told. I'm going to tell that story, inshallah. Inshallah. So if I offer that course again, you really need to jump on it, because that's just one. That's just one of the stories that we tell. Okay? So now with that, let me begin the subject tonight. The so-called conscious community, the black Muslims, and the black bourgeoisie, or the black middle class. I just want to say this right off the break, okay? That in order to watch my videos, you have to be a thinker. You have to be prepared to challenge what you already know. Because as you know, I'm the kind of person, I go deep. All right. I'm a real scholar. Okay. And I try to mine the real facts, the actual facts, as they say, right? The actual facts. That's what you get when you listen to me. And I'm going to challenge your thinking. I'm going to challenge what you think you already know. Okay. Now, it's obvious to me that I have lost some followers since my last couple of videos, especially that first one I did on the conscious community and the Brother Polite story. I lost some folks. That's okay. Okay? That's okay with me, because I know that you all who rock with me, you appreciate what we have to share. You appreciate the research. And I will tell you, brothers and sisters, that course, the Autobiography of Malcolm X, nothing like it. I developed it over the course of when COVID first started. But it's something I had been wanting to do for decades. Do you know that not one, but two of Malcolm's own nieces took the course and learned things about their own uncle who they call Uncle Malcolm? Okay. Right now in the chat, we have Brother Gamal. Okay. Brother Gamal. Gamal is the son. You see him in the chats right now. He's the son of Brother Benjamin, 2X Kareem Goodman, who was Malcolm's assistant minister, who opened up for Malcolm the day that Malcolm was assassinated, February 21st, 1965. These are the types of people that rock with me. Okay? So if you're brain dead, if you just stuck in your little cult and you just following these little cult leaders and you don't want to challenge your thinking, then no, I'm not for you. And that's okay. That's okay. My presentations are for folk who want to learn and for folk who want to challenge what they think they know. Folks that want to get at the real truth of the matter. Okay, that's what you get with me, insha'Allah ta'ala. And so I lost some followers, but that's okay. You know why? Because I'll pick more up. And the ones that I pick up will be quality folk. okay, will be intellectual folk, will be critical thinkers. That's what I want. In fact, you know what? If you're not a critical thinker, you're not going to get much out of my talks anyway. I mean, that's the reality. Okay, that's the reality. Some of these idiots, they come on here. Well, all you talk about is Malcolm. You seem like you're obsessed with Malcolm. You know, let me tell you something. Great personalities in history, the books never stop being written about them. There are still books being written about Napoleon. Every single year, a new book or more comes out on President Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president. There's always new stuff to learn, okay? And who knows, maybe in time, maybe I may do a biography of Malcolm, okay? Because I have a lot of new information that's not in any of the books. In, you know, case in point, this new material that's coming out on Laura when I finally published that article, okay? But the point is, you know, this is a great man, and there has to be people who are experts on their life. People who don't, you know, peddle mythologies and legends and stories, but people who, you know, who ascertain the facts and the chronology of their life and the personalities who came in their life. I could mention, when you take my course, I'll mention people you've never even heard of who were tight with Malcolm. Okay, and I'm mining a lot of new information from Laura's family. I'm getting the background on a lot of folks who are just kind of, you know, in the FBI documents, or, you know, shadowy characters in some of these biographies. I'm getting the information on them. And when we accumulate that information, it gives us insight into our subject, El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Malcolm X. There's nobody worshiping Malcolm, right? There's nobody, quote unquote, obsessed with Malcolm, right? And Malcolm is, you know, he's not the final word on anything. Like, we can't challenge, you know, certain ideas that he taught, and which is what we're going to do tonight. We're going to look at some of his ideas, and we're going to see where some of it is problematic, okay? And that's fine, because Malcolm, you know, was a human being. And he said at the end of his life, 3 days before his assassination, he said, I'm man enough to tell you right now, I can't put my finger on what my philosophy is. Okay? He said, I'm man enough to tell you right now, I can't put my finger on it. But I'm flexible, or words to that effect. Okay? You can find those right in the autobiography. You with me? You guys with me? Give me some hearts and some thumbs up. And guys, you've been stingy the last couple of weeks. You've been eating, and you ain't been paying the bill. Okay? So go in the description box there, you know, anytime during the course of this lecture, and show your support. Whatever you have, but show your support, because that tells me you appreciate, you know, what we're bringing. All right? Now, I did, in a sense, criticize the conscious community. I told you that I have a very dim view of them, of the conscious community. I'm not saying that, you know, there's not good people in the conscious community. I'm not saying that everyone in the conscious community falls under the criticism that I leveled, right? But it is true that the conscious community is not rigorous in their scholarship. Their scholarship is shoddy. Okay? It's unsubstantiated. And many times it's nothing but wacky conspiracy theories. Okay? Goofy origin stories. A lot of it is just a lot of made up nonsense. Okay? A lot of it. Okay, there are kernels of truth in there, but so much of it is dispersed between nonsensical material. All right, and for that reason, I've always taken a dim view of the conscious community. That's number one. Okay. Number two is their attacks on revealed religion. Okay. I mentioned this. Their attacks on Islam and Christianity. Okay. They have a full-throated attack, and almost all of them do it. Okay. They talk about the spook mystery God. Are you worshiping the sky daddy? God forbid. That's the new smear against revealed religion. And I said this, and I know they didn't like it, but yes, they launched these attacks because the conscious community has no moral code, and that's why it's morally bankrupt, and that's why it continues to give you Dr. York, Malachi York, Dwight York from Boston, Massachusetts, aka Imam Isa, okay, and the Ansar community, who metamorphosized into the Nawabians. Okay, this man now is doing life in prison for touching, molesting scores and scores of black girls and boys. He's doing life in prison, something like 129 years or something like that, which is life. And these people in the conscious community, I've heard it many times, they continue to praise this guy, okay? This criminal, this pervert, okay? This sick animal. They shout him out. That is a community that is bankrupt morally and spiritually, okay? This is the community that gave you Dr. York. This is the community that gave you Yahweh ben Yahweh, okay? This is the community that gives you all of these whack jobs. Yusuf Bey on the West Coast, who was also running through young girls like water. Okay, caught himself having a harem. Young underage girls, and the only reason he didn't go to prison is because he died of cancer. Okay, Yusuf Bey. Okay, came out of the Nation of Islam. He was Nation of Islam. All right? This all comes out of the conscious community. All right? They lift up Clarence 13X Smith, a man who left the Nation of Islam because he couldn't abide by its moral code. Okay? Even though the Nation of Islam is not Islam, it did have, laws and rules and what have you that he didn't want to abide by. He loved the teaching about the grafting of the white man. He loved all of that. Okay? The 85%, the 5%, the 10%, he loved all of that. But he wanted to continue to drink. He wanted to continue to gamble. In fact, he used to love to gamble. Okay? He used to love to gamble. Okay? Get high, smoke reefer. Okay? This is what his doctrine was. This is what he based his community on. The teachings of the Nation of Islam minus any type of moral law, any type of moral discipline. Okay? So that was my second real issue with the conscious community, is that it attacks revealed religion while at the same time lacking any type of moral code. All right. Now, how does this relate to black Muslims? How are you going to tie this together, Abdul Rahman? You're all over the place. Oh, I'm gonna tie it all up right now. I'm gonna tie it up right now, because while I, as a Muslim, am prepared to recognize, right, and give a special status to our Christian brothers and sisters, our Christian friends, okay? And this comes from Islam itself. The Quran says that the Christians are the closest to the Muslims. And they are, right? The Christians believe in God. They believe in angels. They believe in the resurrection of the dead. Okay? They believe in a moral code. There are prohibitions against fornication and adultery and drunkenness. Okay? So in that sense, very much like Islam. Okay? It's in their doctrine that's the parting of the ways. Okay? We cannot accept the concept of the Trinity, and that's another subject for another night. I'm not trying to be polemical here. I'm just giving you the facts that Islam recognizes Christianity and good Christians and the moral code that is in that religion. Whether it's being practiced in the churches nowadays, I don't know. There's a lot of hot mess in the churches, the black churches right now too. Okay? But I'm just saying, on a theoretical level, okay? This is what they stand on. Morality. Islam has an even stricter moral code, or a more clearly defined moral code. All right? And I am prepared as a Muslim, and all Muslims have this position where we will recognize the goodness that is in Christianity, but our Christian brothers and sisters, they will not recognize Islam, as something that will benefit their own life. Okay? They look down on Islam. They have a negative view of Islam. They do. They do. I can prove it to you. It's in the culture. Do you remember the Boondocks? Right? Remember that cartoon, the Boondocks? Here's what I want you to do tonight when you're done watching this video. Go watch the episode on Ann Coulter. Let's go to YouTube, put in Ann Coulter on the Boondocks. Ann Coulter, the conservative commentator. You've seen that clip, right? Look at how they portray the Muslim brother. She comes in there, and then she's supposed to be dating. Looks like he's a Salafi Muslim brother. He's got the T-shirt, the white T-shirt. He's got the kufi on, right? Very dark skin. He's got the beard. Okay, they're really trying to show you how Ann Coulter is a hypocrite. Like, while she's on this white nationalist type of thing, she's dating, this dark-skinned black Muslim. Okay, but the brother walks in the room, and the Al Sharpton character, who's also in the scene, he goes, "Oh, hey, Abdul," and she turns around, she says, "Damn, Abdul, can a bee do her work?" I like, this is like the 10th time I've bailed him out of jail. All right. And he's all quiet, and then he walks away very meekly. Okay. That's how black Christians, that's how the black middle class, because, this is where the black mega churches are. Okay. They're in the black middle class. You can't have a black Muslim mega mosque similar to a mega church, right? Without a middle class, without people with money. Okay, professional people, middle class people. You can't have it. Many times, so many times, when we go to a brother or a sister's janazah, or what's called a funeral, janazah, out in the suburbs, we will go to a suburban immigrant masjid or mosque, right? And it's so beautiful. I mean, built from the ground up, not a storefront, not a previously existing building or anything. From the ground up, this beautiful edifice that has a prayer room over here. There's a basketball court and a gym over here. There's classrooms over there, right? All in one facility. Large parking lot, well-kept grounds, landscaped, and what have you. And so many times we'll be on our way home and we'll be talking in the car, why can't we, African American Muslims, black Muslims, how come we can't have something like that? How we've been practicing this religion for decades now. And we have nothing anywhere in the country, that's on that level of classiness, okay, and beauty. I remember when I went to Morocco in 1999, I went to the city of Fez. And in Fez, there is an institution there that is the oldest university in the world. Okay, it's called Al-Qarwa'in. Okay, Al-Qarwa'in Masjid and Madrasa, or religious institution. It's been there 1,000 years. When you go there, it's like you taking a step back in time, 1,000 years. It's unbelievable. Me personally, I love Moroccan architecture. I like, the style of their religious edifices, okay? And, a dream I would always have is, when are we going to get to a point when we can build? I'm talking about black Muslims, African American Muslims who've had this religion for decades and decades now. When are we going to get to the point where we can have something like that? I'm going to tell you right now why we don't have something like that. And I'm going to tell you, and it's going to tie into, let me say that, it's going to tie into my critique of the conscious community. I'm going to tell you why. It's because the black middle class, the black bourgeoisie, they look down on Islam in the same way that they look down on the conscious community. They lump black Muslims in with the conscious community because the conscious community has so many pseudo-Islamic groups, right? 5% NOI, I'm going to throw them in the conscious community. Oh, all of these different Hebrew groups and, in other words, non-Christian groups, they lump us in with them. Okay? And they see it as a low-class religion, something for the masses, something for the downtrodden, something for the economically marginalized, socially marginalized, you know what I mean? The poor, the criminals, the convicts, the women of ill repute. Okay? It's something lowly. Like I said, that clip of Ann Coulter and Abdul on the Boondocks, it says it all. It tells you, how we're viewed. And what that means is that we're not able to get converts in the black middle class. Okay? Look, I went to Howard University. I'm a graduate of Howard University. I have a degree in philosophy from Howard University. The fount of black intellectualism, what we call ourselves the Mecca of black leadership in the world, okay? And it is. It absolutely is. Just go to, any website, put in, Howard University alumni, and you will see a who's who of black American history and culture. It's a who's who. You can barely turn on the television without seeing a Howard University graduate. Okay? It is that place. But I also know from going there and understanding its history and understanding the history of Islam in America. All right. And I'm not talking about pure Islam now. I'm talking about the nation. I'm talking about black Sunnis. I'm speaking about the whole, the whole project in America. Okay. That they look down on Muslims and they have a very dim view of us because we're lumped in with all of this nuttiness and goofiness and immorality even in the conscious community. Okay? They lump us all together. When the reality is that Islam is a great religion. It is the truth as far as I'm concerned. And I will defend Islam to the wall. Whatever problem you have in the Sharia or the Islamic law or whatever, you have a problem with it, come have a conversation with me. And I'll break it down rationally. This is a great religion with a great legacy, but it has never really been presented right to all segments, to every segment of the black community. It has been ghettoized, all right, in the lower classes of our people, which is fine. There's no problem with that in and of itself. But Islam is not just for the poor and the downtrodden and the socially and economically marginalized. Islam is sent for the totality of humanity. Okay? It appeals to rich and poor. Islam, with this elegant and simple theology, which is very easy to understand. There's no mysteries like a Trinity. God is 3 in 1 and all that kind of irrationality. All due respect to my Christian friends and brothers and sisters. I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying that's a very irrational, nonsensical concept to me. And that's the reason why you call it a mystery. Right? Islam, very simple to understand, and Islam militates for justice in clear and explicit terms. It says we are to enjoin the good and forbid the evil. You can't believe in God and see an evil in your, right before you and not affect some type of change. Right? It says, "O you who believe, stand firmly for justice, witnesses to Allah, even if it's against your own self." And there are many verses like that. And there are many hadith or statements of Prophet Muhammad that speak to correcting the evils and injustices in the society. That is why Islam spread like lightning from the Arabian Peninsula all the way to Spain within a 100-year period. Okay? Islam gave us Al-Jabbar. You know what Al-Jabbar is? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Al-Jabbar is one of the names of God, of Allah, the compeller, right? But Al-Jabbar in history comes down to us as algebra, okay? The Muslims gave us algebra. The Muslims gave us the astrolabe, which is a navigational device that revolutionized maritime navigation, the astrolabe, and on and on and on. Ibn Sina, the great Muslim doctor who wrote a book on medicine, a medical book, a medical textbook that is still referenced in medical schools today. Ibn Sina. All right? On and on and on and on and on. Okay? You could bring up a whole, lecture of Muslims' contribution to civilization. And we won't even talk about how Muslim scholars, working with Christian and Jewish scholars, preserved the entire Western canon. All right. All of the philosophy coming out of Greece, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, right, Herodotus, this entire legacy was saved and translated by the Muslims into Arabic. It would have been lost were it not for the Muslims. So the Muslims saved Western civilization. Okay, this was at a time when Europe was literally in the dark ages, backwards, a backwater. Okay, this is the beauty of Islam. But what all our community hears is, the white man is the devil, or the 5%, or Farad Muhammad, and all this kind of goofy stuff. All right, it muddies the waters, and it keeps Islam, the true Islam, okay, in a ghetto with that stuff. And I have to say this, and I'm going to wrap it up in a moment. I have to say this. We have to look at the Nation of Islam's role in this and the role of Malcolm. Towards the end of his life, Malcolm realized that you can't build real institutions, lasting institutions, with just the grassroots. Okay? You can't build lasting institutions. These beautiful masjids, these beautiful schools for our children, you can't build these things with just the poor righteous teachers. Okay? And Islam is not a religion for just the poor righteous teachers, the grassroots. Okay? It's a religion for everybody. Prophet Muhammad, yes, he liberated slaves. Yes, they were the first to accept the message. The liberated slaves, the enslaved, right? Women who were being abused. The status of women in Arabia in the 7th century was horrible. Okay? Islam gave them so many rights and elevated them and put them on the throne. That's a fact. That's a fact. But he had more than just the downtrodden. He had more than just the slaves and the women and the poor. Okay? He had Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, who was a man of means, who purchased the freedom of so many slaves with his own money. Purchased the first muezzin, the first caller to prayer, Bilal ibn Rabah, a black Ethiopian slave. Okay? Abu Bakr had money. Abdul Rahman ibn Auf, a brilliant businessman, had money. Uthman ibn Affan, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, right, who married 2 of the Prophet's daughters. He married one, she passed away, and he married another of the Prophet's daughters. Multi-millionaire in today's terms. He was a multi-millionaire. You have to have people like that, okay, to build your movement. It just can't be about the grassroots. And that's the problem even with that speech, because it's a class argument that Malcolm was making. Are you all following me? Am I going too deep here? Sometimes I go, and sometimes you can. Let me know if you're following me here. Let me know if you follow me. Give me some hearts. Give me some thumbs up. I'll try to make it clear if I'm not. Malcolm took the history of the house Negro and the field Negro that existed during slavery, and he created a construct, okay? And he tried to project that onto American society 100 years later after slavery. Okay? And if you look at it, it's a class argument that I think we need to examine. Okay? Because who are the house Negroes in Malcolm's formulation? Who are the house Negroes? They're educated blacks. They're the black middle class. Are they not? Right? He said, I even heard what I'm talking about, our astronauts. Won't even let them near the plant. Well, guess what? We have many black astronauts now. Okay? We have many black astronauts now. Just because someone wants to be a professional, just because someone aspires to be a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist or a politician, okay, that doesn't mean, Malcolm, that they're a sellout. That doesn't mean that they're an Uncle Tom. That doesn't mean that they're a coon. All right? You see what I'm getting at, folks? In that speech, Malcolm is attacking the very people who at the end of his life, he realized that he would need to build his movement. Okay? Now, he didn't live long enough to develop, a lasting organization. And he again, like I said, he didn't really know exactly where he was going. He was, he was looking at any number of, ideological approaches. He was trying to, mend the bridges between himself and the civil rights movement, which I don't think they would ever have accepted him, because he still kept armed self-defense, on the table. He still was talking about the Mau Mau, okay, and the civil rights movement, and the white money that was funding it would have never allowed Malcolm to become part of them, okay? But Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis and Juanita Portier and others, John Oliver Killens, the novelist, they were trying to work something out where, let's say, Dr. King and the Big Six could organize the South and Malcolm could organize the urban North. But of course, as it was God's will, that never happened. But I want to draw a red line. I want to draw a red line between the goofiness that you find in the conscious community, the ignorance, yes, the ignorance, the character flaws, the immorality, and the criminality. I want to draw a hard and fast line, a red line between that on the one hand and Islam on the other. That's what I want to do. I want to find black Muslim intellectuals who can defend this religion with history and logic and reason, okay? Who can present it to all segments of the black community so that we can have a thriving Islamic reality in America and not continually be like the serfs to our immigrant Muslim brothers and sisters who just tolerate us being around. Okay? The one who came closest to this was Imam Warithuddin Muhammad. He did understand. However, in my judgment, even in that community, they built a cult around him as well. I'm sorry, I love my brothers and sisters, but I have to tell it the way I see it. Okay? I have to tell it the way I see it. When they talk about preserving his language, and it gets kind of, when it starts becoming more than the Quran and the Hadith, okay, and it becomes like a litmus test, to something other than the Quran and the Hadith, then it starts becoming a cult of personality. Okay? I know how these people think, the black bourgeoisie. I know how they think. Let me give you a little history here, and I'm going to wrap this up. Give you a little history here, and I'll wrap this up. Black History Month, or should I say Negro History Week. It wasn't a month until 1976 is when it got turned into a month. But in 1961, February 14th, 1961, Malcolm was scheduled to give a speech at Howard University, my alma mater. Okay? And it was sponsored by the NAACP chapter on campus. Can you imagine? This very conservative, integrationist organization, right? Nonviolent. They wanted to bring Malcolm to Howard University, of all places. Okay? Now you have to remember that at this time, young black students on campuses, they were becoming very dissatisfied with the slow progress, the gradualism of the Big Six leadership's approach. They were becoming quite militant. And I'm talking about the students who were in the NAACP, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, the Urban League. I mean, the young people, they wanted Malcolm. They wanted to hear from Malcolm because they saw the brutality of the segregationists. They saw the barbarity of the freedom rides. Okay, and all this going on. They wanted to hear from Malcolm. But Howard University at this time was presided over by President James Nabrett. James Nabrett. He was the second black president of Howard University. Mordecai Wyatt Johnson was the first. Nabrett, this was maybe his second year. Mordecai was 1960, he was 1961. Who is James Nabrett? Who is James Nabrett? James Nabrett is an attorney and one of three people who at Howard Law School developed the strategy, the legal strategy that took down segregation in the school systems. Okay? Brown versus the Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, 1954. James Nabrett at Howard University, at Howard Law School. Okay? They're the ones that formulated this, along with the dean, the great Charles Hamilton Houston, and the future Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall. Those three men, okay, were fighting for full inclusion of our people in American life. And James Nabrett was one of the scholars and intellectuals who formulated that strategy. Okay? So now he's the president of Howard University. Do you think that he is going to allow the preeminent spokesman for black separatism, all right, the preeminent spokesman for what they would call anti-white hate, calling the white man the devil and this, that, and the third, right? Do you think that James Nabrett would allow Malcolm to come to Howard University? The answer is, of course not. And he vetoed it. The Board of Trustees vetoed it. They overrode the students. And, it developed into something of a movement because the students wanted to hear from Malcolm. So they got the assistance, the support of one of the most preeminent scholars in African American history, the great E. Franklin Frazier. Okay, E. Franklin Frazier. Look him up if you don't know who he is. Look him up. I can't go into all of these personalities. E. Franklin Frazier, who wrote The Negro Family in the United States, which was his 1932 PhD thesis. He was a sociologist. And then that developed into a book, which appeared in 1939. Frazier was also an expert and wrote articles and a book on the Negro Church. But he is most famous for his own critique of the black bourgeoisie, called The Black Bourgeoisie. That's what he's most famous for. That's what most people know him for. This is going to be the last year of Frazier's life. Remember, I told you this was February of 1961. Frazier is going to die in 62. So he's sick. And he prevails upon the Board of Trustees and the president. Say, look, this is a university. And at a university, our students have to be exposed to all ideologies. They have to have their thinking challenged. We don't ban speakers. Okay? We know that this man's ideology, his religion, is anathema, is antithetical to everything that Howard stands for. Okay? And keep in mind, Howard is the only private institution, okay? Or as I say, one of two. There's only two. Gallaudet, the School for the Hearing Impaired, and Howard University, which were two institutions founded by the federal government. Howard was founded by the Freedmen's Bureau, right? That by statutes gets a federal appropriation from Congress. It's the only university, black or white, with the exception of Gallaudet, that gets that, okay? So the university's got a lot at stake allowing Malcolm to come. But E. Franklin Frazier prevailed upon the administration, and they allowed Malcolm to come, but they wouldn't give him the floor absolutely to him. He just couldn't come and give a speech. It had to be a debate. He had to have another speaker to challenge him, and they chose Bayard Rustin. Okay? Bayard Rustin. Okay? You got to learn who Bayard Rustin is. He is the organizer of the March on Washington. Okay? So you'll see a very famous photograph of Malcolm sitting in one chair, Bayard Rustin sitting in another chair, and the future Dr. Michael Winston, who is still a vice president at Howard, by the way, in this very famous photograph, okay, of Malcolm at Howard University. Guys, show your support, man. Go in the description box and show your support. I'm giving up some good information here. Okay, I'm giving some good information. So Malcolm was allowed to speak that October 30th, 1961. And, the students were with Malcolm. They wanted to hear Malcolm. And Malcolm, he electrified the students. Bayard Rustin probably won the debate. In fact, I'm sure he won the debate. Because what Malcolm, his solution that he was representing at that time was never going to happen. Complete separation from America. That was never going to be a solution. Okay? These folks at Howard and folks who came through this institution and institutions like it that produced the black bourgeoisie, they always saw that as goofy. I'm just keeping it real. I'm just being totally honest. They always saw that as nutty, as goofy, as ahistorical. Okay, this was 100 years removed from the American Civil War, when 624,000 Americans, North and South, lost their lives to adjudicate the question of can states secede from the Union. Okay, that issue had been settled 100 years ago. Okay, it was absolutely a non-starter for Elijah Muhammad to say the black Muslims, black people, which was a nation within a nation, should request from the United States to give black folks 8 or 10 states for a completely black nation. That is absurd. It was absurd then. It's absurd now. There's not going to be any Nation of Islam in America, folks. This is all this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. It's a non-starter and it's goofy. And that's the reason why Malcolm lost the debate, because his solution, yes, his attack on racism, his attack on white supremacy, his attack on the brutality that was being inflicted on his people, no one could touch him. But then when he goes into the solution, that's where Bayard Rustin tore him up. But, the students are young and they wanted to hear Malcolm, and Malcolm, you could say, won the debate in that sense, because the students, they weren't really trying to hear about nonviolent passive resistance. They were very impatient, okay, and they were very militant. So I say all that to say that the black bourgeoisie has a very strained relationship with what they perceive to be Muslims. This happened again 30 years later, when the Unity Nation, which was a student group founded by a guy, you all heard his name, Malik Zulu Shabazz. Have you all ever heard that guy's name? Give me some thumbs up or something. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever heard of Malik Zulu Shabazz? I knew him even before. I knew him when he was Paris Lewis from California. Okay. He was a law student. And he had this organization that modeled itself after the Nation of Islam, kind of like a fifth column Nation of Islam group. He called it Unity Nation. And he brought Khalid Abdul Muhammad to the campus of Howard University. This is when Khalid was spewing all of this kind of anti-Semitic, really ugly language, right, against the Jewish people. Right, I can't even repeat what he said because it would never be allowed on YouTube. But it was vile. Okay, it was vile. He was infamous for a speech he had given at Keene College. Right. Well, he took the road show to Howard, and it wasn't even mostly students there. Okay, it was folks outside, but the university got stigmatized for being anti-Semitic, and it caused a lot of problems. So he gave 2 speeches. After his second speech, which was April 21st, around there, 1994, the backlash against Howard University was so visceral that 3 days later, the president, Dr. Franklin Jennifer, was forced to resign. So why am I telling you all of this? I'm speaking to Muslims. I'm speaking to Christians. I'm even speaking to my brothers and sisters in the conscious community. Okay. We must excise these kind of nutty ideas from the black community. And we have to share the beauty that is Islam. Even if you're not a Muslim. I think our people have a right to know exactly what Islam is and what it isn't, and to talk about its rich heritage and its rich legacy and its contribution to world civilization. Do you know that Islam protected the Jews during the Great Inquisition in Europe? All right? Do you know that under Muslim Spain, the Muslims ruled Spain for close to 800 years? Do you know that Jews were in the governments of the different emirs, Emirates that were in Muslim Spain? You had Jews that actually worked in government, Jews that taught in the universities. You know, the greatest Jewish scholar that they say they've ever produced, Maimonides, was a product of Muslim Spain. And then when they got run out of Europe by the Christians through the Inquisition, they were allowed to seek comfort and protection in North Africa to this day by Islam. That's why I say, you know, with the Taliban and everything that's going on in Afghanistan and what have you, right? I'm not going to sit back and allow the media to keep slamming Islam every day like they have been doing for the last 20 years. Okay, whatever's going on over there, that's what's going on over there. But we're going to defend Islam, and we're going to share Islam with the people and explain, you know, exactly what it is and the beauty of this religion and how it can solve the problems in our black community, because we're in bad shape. We've got rappers, male rappers, posting pictures, na'udhu billah, God forbid, like they're pregnant. Okay? This little, I don't even want to mention this dude's name, man. All right? This is where it's come to. Where our women are openly rapping and singing about their genitalia. This is what it's come to. This is what it's come to. Okay? You cannot open your cell phone without seeing all of these dancing videos and twerking. You can't open your phone. Right? But look at the condition of the black community. The black middle class, they look at that, right? And they say, okay, those people down there, that Islam, that'll work for them. That's for them. That's not for us. My dear brothers and sisters, we have to change that. We have to change that. We have to change that by developing intellectuals, writers, speakers. We have to raise up a new generation of black Muslim leadership, imams, and scholars who can present this religion in a rational, reasonable way that accentuates its beauty and its grandeur. This is our task. This is my task. And you know what? I believe that if Brother Malcolm was here today, that's what he would be doing. He would be doing other things for sure. And he definitely believed that his own religion was his own religion. Okay? He had his approach to that. And I understand that, which is why he founded the OAAU. We're clear about that. But he definitely would have shared the religion with the people, with all segments of the people. He was already starting to get rid of that house Negro, field Negro construct because it's problematic. It's problematic. You see a speech on YouTube where he's at one of those rallies in Harlem, and he's giving a version of the house Negro and the field Negro. Right? He's giving a version of it. And he says, anytime you see that Negro big shot downtown want to be near white people, that's the house Negro. Okay? That's problematic, brothers and sisters. That's problematic. Islam is not a class, a religion based on class, just for the ignorant masses. Elijah Muhammad used to say that his message was for the little black man and woman in the mud. You know? See, he made it a class issue. That's Elijah Muhammad's innovation, so to speak, right? That's his innovation. But that's not the real Islam. Islam would never say, oh, it's just for the black man and woman in the mud. It's for the poor. It's for the convict. It's for the criminal. No, he would never say that. I mean, Islam doesn't say that. Islam is for everyone. Okay? We want everyone to come into this deen. In closing, yes, we have done some damage to ourselves as Muslims. We did lose a lot of the moral authority as a result of the 9/11 attacks, which will be coming up on the 20th anniversary of that, and all of the atrocities that Muslims have committed all over the world with ISIS and all of these other things. I was accused by some Muslims that I've known for many, many years. I was accused of making the Muslims look bad in who killed Malcolm X. Because I'm showing all of these Muslims, these brothers with beards and what have you, and they knew that the killer was there. The killers, because it wasn't just Bradley. We know that. Al-Mustafa Shabazz. Okay? It was Benjamin Thomas, Leon Davis, Wilbur McKinley, and who's the other one I'm failing to mention? Talmadge Hayer. Right? So all 5 of them. So they're all equally guilty. Even the ones that weren't shooters. Because it was a conspiracy. I don't want to give you the idea that it was only one man who was guilty. It was 5 men, at least 5 men, who took part in that assassination. But you're making the Muslims look bad. Putting them on television, and now our community, the black community, sees that the Muslims killed Malcolm. The history is the history. If the history bothers you, then create a new history. Let's turn that page. I can't make Islam look any worse than what those Al-Qaeda people did, what these ISIS people did. We lost a lot of moral high ground with that. But when it comes to sharing this religion, all right, I'm going to do my best with the rest of the life that I have to share it, to teach it, to expound on it, to elucidate it. That's my role. And we'll be reaching out to my brothers and sisters of talent, who have ability, writers, scholars, to turn a new page and to, share this religion with the whole black community, right? Not just those who have challenges in life. All right. So with that, did you guys like this talk? If 5 were caught, how many people was behind the stage? Well, we're going to find out, because there's going to be some more FBI documents that are going to be coming out. Okay. So be looking out for that in the future. So with that, we bring the talk to a close. I thank you. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, like this video and subscribe to the channel. That's very important. And share it. And I hope that my brothers and sisters in the conscious community haven't taken offense to what I've said tonight. I'd like to win some of them back. I've noticed that many of them unfollowed me and what have you. That's okay. That's okay, but I'm still going to speak the truth. There's a problem over there. And by the way, you know what? While I'm at it, before I close, there's a problem even with the Sunni Muslims. We've had our problems. We have a very famous imam right now who's doing life in the Supermax, okay, for killing a police officer in Atlanta and wounding another one. 2 black cops. All right. Whatever you believe about what happened, all right, I'm not making a judgment on that right now. I have my understanding of that whole affair. But the point is, this is a very famous imam who's doing life right now for committing murder. We had another imam about 12 years ago in Detroit who was gunned down by the feds in the course of robbing televisions from a warehouse. Okay, stuff like this. All right. You know why these things happen? Because we're only sharing the religion with folks who have character issues. Quality folks, educated folks, folks of character, folks of integrity. All right, we got to get those folks too. Okay, we're not going anywhere without leadership of integrity and intellect. So with that, I'm going to close it. I've spoken a long time. I hope you all have enjoyed this talk. Please share it. And again, go to the description box and show your support. All right? Send your brother something for all this good information I shared with you tonight. All right? So you have a good evening, and I'll see you next time.